The movie begins with us seeing some secret documents from a company called CGC&M. This company had been conducting experiments on dogs, and still is, performing genetic manipulation and various tests on them since before World War II. This project was known as Project Silence, which turned animals into real killing breeds. At an important political meeting in Seoul, the capital of South Korea, we see Yoon, a presidential advisor, talking about the strategy for a presidential campaign. After the meeting, he meets the candidate, who gives him an envelope to help cover the expenses for his daughter's trip, which is supposed to take place that same day. Yoon lives with his teenage daughter, who clearly feels uncomfortable around him after her mother's death, and this makes him uneasy as well. However, when he watches the news and sees that his candidate is leading in the polls, he feels very happy. Later, while driving with his daughter, Yoon hears warnings on the radio about a heavy fog approaching, with advice for drivers to be cautious. After stopping at a gas station to fill up, the attendant comes to collect the payment but starts acting strangely, which makes Yoon feel like something is off. Since he's in a hurry, he decides to leave without paying, planning to settle the bill with the manager later. Yoon drives off, leaving the worker, whose name is Jo Park, shouting angrily behind him. At the same time, a professional golfer, arrives at the city airport with her sister Miran, who works as her assistant. They're there for a golf tournament scheduled for the next day. They run into an elderly woman with Alzheimer's and manage to save her from getting hit by a car. Her husband, Byun-hak, thanks them, and everyone goes their separate ways. The husband was supervising traffic on Incheon Bridge, while other staff members were commenting on how dense the fog was that night, making visibility almost impossible. Or was asleep while her sister Miran was driving toward the tournament location. As they crossed the bridge, Miran started getting nervous because of the thick fog limiting visibility. Despite her anxiety, told her to keep driving. At that moment, a reckless driver in a Camaro sped past them, weaving dangerously between cars on the bridge. At the same time, Yoon was driving on the same bridge when a military convoy suddenly appeared, honking to clear the way. Miran glanced at one of the vehicles and, through a small window, saw the face of a terrifying dog with glowing red eyes. Meanwhile, the elderly woman and her husband, whom Moore and Miran had met earlier, were also on the bridge and saw the reckless Camaro driver speeding by. Then the inevitable happens. The driver loses control of the car and spins out in the middle of the road. A bus driver carrying the elderly couple is forced to stop suddenly to avoid crashing into him. But another car appears out of nowhere and fails to stop in time, slamming into the reckless driver's vehicle. About 20 cars crash into each other, but it doesn't end there. A truck loses control and plows into all the wrecked vehicles. People start getting out of their cars and running in panic, trying to save their lives after seeing the disaster unfold. As a result, one lane of the bridge is completely shut down. Orr and her sister are among those involved in the crash, and not even a police patrol car survives. The officer driving it couldn't see a vehicle ahead and crashed into it, causing part of the car's roof to be torn off. At the same time, Jo Park is getting scolded at work for not collecting the gas payment from Yoon. But when he hears about the accident on the bridge, he decides to go there to get his money. In reality, Jo Park is a truck driver, so he gets into his vehicle and heads out to find Yoon. Meanwhile, Yoon drives through an open lane toward the airport and witnesses the disaster. The military convoy is ahead of him, and when another accident happens behind them, the convoy leader tries to stop but crashes into something in front, causing the rest of the vehicles behind to collide as well. The driver quickly gets out to check the cargo in his vehicle. When he suspects it may have been damaged, he steps out to see what's going on. Miran becomes worried about the car that fell behind them, and wants to get out to help, but her father stops her and tells her to stay in the car while he goes alone. Yoon goes to the scene and sees two soldiers pulling a man out of a vehicle. It turns out to be Dr. Yang, the lead researcher in charge of the military dog experiments. He has a minor shoulder injury. One of the soldiers tries to contact the driver of the vehicle carrying the cargo but gets no response. The two soldiers leave, and Yoon is left with Dr. Yang. When they approach the military vehicle, they're shocked by what they see. The door is open. The officer orders all radio signals in the area to be cut off. Looking inside the vehicle, they find only the driver's lifeless body. Yoon takes Dr. Yang with him to his car while talking to someone on the phone. But suddenly, all signals were cut off for no clear reason, something the soldiers had done for a classified purpose. He quickly realized that no one around him could get a signal either. Then he noticed his daughter wasn't in the car, so he started searching and calling out her name. Kamen had walked a little ahead cautiously after noticing something strange. A dog was banging its head against a metal barrier on the side of the road. She found it odd, but she wasn't scared enough to run away. Instead, she called the dog over and offered it some biscuits. The dog didn't seem aggressive and accepted the food, but when Yoon showed up, it became uneasy and quickly disappeared into the fog. Shortly after, several dogs of the same kind appeared and noticed the crowd gathered because of the accident, so they started approaching them. At the same time, the soldiers reached Dr. Yang and asked him to initiate the protocol, since there was no time before the helicopter arrived. When Dr. Yang overheard part of their conversation, he asked about the protocol they were referring to and what kind of helicopter could even make it in this weather to rescue them. Yoon also demanded that they restore the phone signal, knowing they were the ones who had cut it, but the soldiers restrained him. Around that same moment, Joe Park arrived at the accident scene with his truck, along with his dog. Meanwhile, the soldiers put on protective suits to shield themselves from bites and told Dr. Yang to begin the operation. He pressed the trigger, and suddenly all the dogs that had seemed calm and harmless up to that point turned extremely aggressive and rushed back toward the vehicle they had come from. The dogs charged at a soldier, but thanks to his suit, he managed to avoid being bitten and started defending himself as the dogs attacked him one after another. However, one of the dogs, codenamed A.T., the same one K-Man had seen earlier, stopped in place, then slowly walked toward the soldier and stood at a distance, just watching. Seeing this, Dr. Yang decided to activate the protocol again and pressed the button a second time. This caused all the dogs to stop attacking the soldier, who had taken cover inside the vehicle. At that moment, a helicopter arrived carrying a container and lowered it onto the bridge. The soldiers began transferring the dogs into the new container, and once all of them were inside, it started to lift off. But Dr. Yang suddenly remembered that one dog was missing. He located it on the radar, still in the same spot, and sent a soldier to check it out. When the soldier got there, he found nothing but the electronic chip that controlled the dog lying on the ground, indicating that the dog was no longer under their control. Then it turned out the dog had been standing on top of the container as it was being lifted. Suddenly, it managed to get inside the helicopter and killed the soldier, causing the container to fall back onto the bridge. With its agility and high intelligence, the dog managed to take down the second soldier, and before jumping out, it killed the helicopter pilot, causing the aircraft to crash into the bridge and get tangled in the support cables. Dr. Yang was shocked when he realized that the dogs had gone out of control after losing connection with the electronic chips that controlled them. The dogs went into a violent frenzy, breaking open the container door and attacking anyone in their path. Everyone started running in panic, trying to save their lives from these terrifying beasts that attacked anything in front of them. When Or saw her sister in danger, she grabbed her golf club and struck one of the dogs with all her strength, successfully saving her sister from death. People were running in every direction, trying to escape the savage dogs. The soldier who had been driving the vehicle was killed by the dog. A.T. Joe Park was trying to escape from one of the dogs, while Yoon, his daughter, and Dr. Yang got into a police car to flee, but the car was stuck on a hook from a truck. Even so, they managed to move and dragged a piece of metal along with them. Joe Park, who had been hiding nearby, saw them leaving. K-Man didn't want to stop for him, but Yoon's daughter pulled the handbrake, allowing him to catch up and save himself. Joe ran out of hiding and sprinted toward the car while the dogs chased him. Luckily, he managed to jump into the trunk at the last second, and they drove off. At the same time, Or, her sister, and a few others managed to board a bus with the elderly woman and her husband, who were also trying to escape from the dogs. Meanwhile, Yoon and the others kept moving forward but were forced to stop because of the burning helicopter, which had created a wall of fire in front of them. Their car crashed, and Yoon couldn't start it again. Suddenly, one of the most dangerous and powerful dogs, wearing a muzzle, jumped under the hood of the car. At that moment, Hatch K, who was aware of what was happening on the bridge, asked his advisors how they could rescue the people. They told him that rescue by boats was impossible due to the huge distance between the sea and the bridge, and the tide made it even worse. Air rescue wasn't an option either because of the dense fog. Meanwhile, Yoon and the others were terrified of the massive dog under the hood. The people on the bus saw Yoon's car surrounded by the savage dogs and were trying to figure out how to help. Yoon shouted at Dr. Yang, demanding an explanation. Dr. Yang then started explaining that these dogs were genetically modified, and that the United States and Western European countries had experimented on them to make them deadly in warfare. He explained that electronic chips were implanted in their heads to control them, but now that control had been lost, they had become extremely dangerous. Yoon used the radio of the dead soldier to contact Hatch K and inform him of the situation. He told him that there was a fuel truck overturned ahead of them, surrounded by fire, and that it could explode at any moment. Moments later, an explosion actually happened, causing the dogs to disappear briefly and giving them a chance to get out of the car and run until they reached the bus. The driver quickly reversed to get away from the danger. At the same time, the large military helicopter broke free from the bridge cables and crashed into the fuel truck, causing a massive explosion and a violent shockwave that destabilized the bridge and destroyed parts of it, making escape impossible for the survivors. The dogs surrounded the bus, and the dog AT seemed to be their leader. Dr. Yang stood up and spoke to the people inside the bus, reassuring them that he could contact the authorities and that if they followed instructions carefully, they would be evacuated soon. People asked about the dogs and how they got there, but Dr. Yang, like a seasoned politician, lied and changed the subject, claiming there was a rabies outbreak, even though he knew the government was responsible for everything happening. Meanwhile, a special forces rescue team was preparing to enter the bridge. After a while, they arrived and began inspecting the area. Their searchlights didn't just reveal them to the people, it also exposed them to the dogs. The special forces team reached the bus quickly and ordered everyone to get out, saying they hadn't seen any dogs so far and that they had probably run off. But Yoon asked everyone to wait and contacted Hatch K, who told him that since they didn't know where the dogs were, they should move with the special forces and that everything would be fine. The team leader said it would only take about 30 minutes to reach a safe zone. Everyone then started moving carefully through hundreds of wrecked cars, seeing the bodies of people who had been killed by the dogs. Dr. Young spotted one of the dogs hiding nearby, panicked, and accidentally hit a car, setting off its alarm. Luckily, Joe managed to stop the noise, and they continued moving through the thick fog. Soon after, another car alarm went off ahead of them. The officers went to check it out while the others waited. When nothing seemed wrong, they told everyone to keep moving, but then multiple car alarms started going off, and it turned out one of the dogs was triggering them. The officers went to shut them off, but they were suddenly attacked and killed by the dogs. The dogs then rushed toward the rest of the group, attacking them. They had been trained their entire lives to target soldiers first, but they didn't hesitate to attack civilians as well. Even though some of the dogs were shot, it wasn't enough to stop them, and the attack continued. Yoon tried to contact his superior, but one of the dogs attacked him before he could. Luckily, he managed to push it back slightly and noticed Joe hiding under a nearby car, while his daughter was struggling from the other side. Fortunately, the dog heard Joe's dog barking, so it stopped attacking and went after Joe and his dog instead. This gave Yoon a chance to get up and save his daughter. Luckily, the dog hadn't bitten her, it was only holding onto her backpack. The officers managed to take down another dog, and Yoon moved away, searching for a safe place. He hid his daughter in the bus's luggage compartment and told her to stay there while he went to retrieve the radio. He stepped out, quickly found it, and also gathered anything useful he could carry. When he saw movement inside a nearby car, he went to check, and found Joe, or her sister, and the elderly woman with her husband. Then K-Man realized that Dr. Yang was hiding there too. After that, they opened a hatch leading into the middle of the bus. K-Man had already seen the dogs outside and knew exactly how dangerous they were. Having lost all hope, Dr. Yang said they were all going to die, explaining that the reason was the pack leader, known as A9, who wanted revenge for what had been done to him and the other dogs. Yoon and the others came up with a plan and got ready to move. They lit flares to get a clear view of the area, and Yoon contacted HK again, asking him to track them through the cameras. HK replied that he could, but it was still difficult because of the heavy fog. Yoon said he was heading towards Seoul, but HK told him to go toward the airport, near the broken section of the bridge, where another group was still waiting. Yoon said he needed to get his daughter first. He managed to reach the bus, but the dogs attacked quickly, though they weren't using their full strength, seemingly afraid of the fire. When Joe noticed that, he used a bottle of alcohol and blew it out to create a burst of flame, pushing the dogs back a bit. Then Yang threw a flashbang, which drove the dogs away, and K-Man opened the bus door so everyone could get in. They managed to start the bus and drove quickly away from the area. It later became clear that a stronger rescue effort hadn't been deployed yet because news about the dogs hadn't been leaked, so it wouldn't affect HK's election campaign. He was currently the National Security Director, but the fact that his advisor and friend was still on the bridge weighed heavily on him. At that moment, Yoon and the others reached the broken part of the bridge, where the rescue aircraft was supposed to be waiting, along with someone expecting them. Yang tried to contact HK, but got no response. Suddenly, a powerful tremor hit, and the bridge started collapsing. The dogs were hiding outside, ready to attack anyone who came out. Then they came up with a smart plan to deal with them. They opened the bus door to lure the dogs inside, but first hid in the luggage compartment. Using a metal wire, they planned to shut the door once the dogs were inside. They monitored everything through the bus cameras, and once the last dog entered searching for humans, they closed the door, trapping them all inside. The elderly woman with Alzheimer's died from her injuries, and her husband chose not to leave with the group. They quickly opened the luggage compartment and escaped, while the dogs inside tried to break through. The old man held the door shut before they could get out, but the dogs bit his arm. In the end, he sacrificed himself so the others could escape. Dr. Yang started shouting, asking where the rescue team was, and when it became clear that no one was coming, everyone was shaken. He tried to contact HK again, but Hatch only listened silently and didn't respond. Yoon realized no one was coming to save them, so he came up with an idea and shared it with everyone. They used the container that had previously held the dogs, and Yoon went inside it to lure the dogs toward the collapsing section of the bridge. Dr. Yang monitored the dogs' behavior using his damaged laptop, since it was the only thing they could still rely on after losing control. K-Man got into Joe's truck, where Dr. Yang was, and told everyone to stay quiet so only Yoon's voice could be heard, guiding and directing the dogs' movement. Meanwhile, Orr and her sister were on top of another container, hitting the bus windshield with golf balls to weaken it. The dogs quickly escaped and ran toward the source of Yoon's voice. Next, Joe brought out his master key set and used it to start the bus and his truck, planning to pull Yoon, inside the container, away once the bridge collapsed. However, the pack leader, no longer controlled by the chip, stayed inside the bus and started chasing Joe. Eventually, it attacked Dr. Yang, but Yang used the taser to stun it temporarily. The weakest part of the bridge began to collapse, and the container holding the dogs started falling. When the leader saw his pack in danger, he ran to help them, leaving Dr. Yang behind. Most of the dogs fell from the collapsing section, which didn't completely give way but tilted heavily. Only a small dog and the leader managed to stay on the bridge, though the smaller dog got trapped under a large piece of metal. At that moment, K-Man appeared with a towing cable to help her father, but the bridge started collapsing even more, causing her to fall. Some of the dogs also lost their balance and fell. The container Yoon was in didn't fall but remained stuck among the debris. In the end, K-Man wasn't seriously hurt. She managed to secure the cable to the container and shouted to Joe to pull them up. He did immediately, struggling at first, but eventually succeeding in pulling the container, with Yoon and his daughter inside, to safety. The bridge continued collapsing, and they all ran to escape the area. They managed to pass through sections still filled with toxic gases caused by earlier explosions. Finally, they reached the end of the bridge safely, where a journalist and a rescue team were waiting. The survivors began receiving treatment for their injuries. Yoon then confronted Hatch K, punched him, and exposed all the government's secret projects to the public. Not far from there, we see the pack leader arriving with the small dog, which had also survived. The movie ends with a chilling, steady shot of AT staring at the bridge where all the tragedy took place. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, your opinion matters. Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel.